Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maciej Mormon, and I will be talking to you about app promotion tracking. So options, how can you track installs, in-app conversions, and other things related to your app. Today's Hangout will last no more than 30 minutes, but please bear in mind that after that, at noon London time, there will be another Hangout, so please stay with us, and I'm sure you'll learn more about Play Store from my colleagues. So let me just start with some options of how can we promote your apps and track the results. So here you will find how, why, and what we can track. So first, we have to understand how app tracking differs from web tracking, web conversion tracking. So with web conversions, it's like somebody clicks on your ad, goes to your website, and since you have conversion tracking code implemented there, we are able to attribute the click and attribute the action that drove the conversion to the click to your ad previously. With app tracking, it's somewhat more complicated because we have to be sure that the device that was used to click the ad was exactly the device that drove the conversion, whether it's an install or in-app conversion. To do that, we are using two identifiers, which are called IDFA for iOS and ADID for Android. These identifiers allow us to match the clicks to conversions and hence make sure that it is us who drove your conversion. When it comes to the types of conversion tracking we can do, there are three most popular ones, plus one for Android, which I will brush on later on. So there's AdWords SDK, which is a piece of code you implement within your app that allows you to track conversions, but also allows you to create some remarketing actions, which I will talk a little bit more later on, but there's a special hangout especially for this occasion, so I will advise you to take a look at that as well. Then there's server-to-server implementation, which is one of the first-party implementation. So server-to-server is when you decide to gather the data yourself, but to send us some additional information on that. So it is done by building HTTP GET requests. So we know that you want us to check if an action that happened or an app installation that happened actually came from AdWords. So this is server to server. And the last one out of the three most popular ones is third-party analytics. So you are using either third-party SDK or some sort of tracking templates, URLs, etc., that allow you to make sure that you get all of the information in one system and share with us some information that you find relevant. So let me tell you a little bit more about that third-party tracking. It is not a subject that will stay with us for long with this hangout because we are talking about third company solutions. But what is important here and why some advertisers choose third-party tracking over AdWords SDK tracking or Analytics SDK tracking, or sometimes in combination with those two, is to have all of the data in one place. So third-party tracking is usually used if you track not only app conversions, but also some, some conversions from different types of actions, and you want to have all of the data in one system. So it's basically you gather all of the data in one system and then share a portion of this data with us so we can match whatever came from AdWords and show you some additional information in AdWords, and then bring back this information that yes, this conversion, this app install, or this in-app action actually came from AdWords. So that's something worth remembering when you'll be deciding which solution you'll be using for your needs. Now, let me go to what are the options between the two main platforms, so Android and iOS. So for Android, we have either codeless solution, which I will talk a bit later on. So a solution that doesn't require you to create any code within your app. There's Google SDK that allows you to trap both installs as well as in-app conversions, out of which probably the most popular is first open conversions, about which you probably have heard a lot in the last few weeks, as we've introduced this in-app first opens and post back solution to Android on search campaigns. Then there are third-party SDKs that I mentioned about. So these options are available across pretty much all of Google networks, so AdMob, Search, and YouTube, with also MGDN, so Mobile Google Display Network, also available. When it comes to iOS, we have no option to use codeless solutions. So the solutions that we have available is both Google SDK that allows you to track first opens and in-app conversion events, as well as third-party SDK. And bear in mind that these options are available only in AdMob and on YouTube campaigns. Generally, at the moment, iOS conversion tracking or in-app conversion tracking is not available for both search campaigns and MGDN campaigns. So that's something you have to bear in mind when thinking about tracking the data from your apps. That's something you won't be able to do at the moment. So let's go to the comparison between AdWords SDK and third-party analytics. There are many things in common, but there are some that are stronger in one option on the other, and that's why it's not uncommon for advertisers to use both options in combination. So for AdWords SDK, it works for both main systems. It can track both downloads and in-app conversions. It's important because with one solution, you can have both. And later on in this Hangout, I will tell you why it's important and what can you get from tracking both app installs, downloads, and app conversions. And foremost, what's important for advertisers is that it works for across all Google Ad networks, except for iOS, mobile search, and mobile GDN I mentioned before. A con of this solution is that it requires integration, right? So you will have to integrate a piece of code into your app and add some GET requests and in-app conversion requests to be able to track it all. It's important for some of the advertisers when they don't want to change anything within their app, add some way to it, or in any way modify its code. And why I'm talking about this is because some of the third-party analytics options do not require any SDK. So they are able to get the data from referrers in the URLs, etc., and do not need you to implement anything in your app. However, this is not something I will be able to comment on, as these are third-party solutions. So it's not something we will be able to help you on in such great amount as with AdWords SDK tracking. And one of the more important cons of this solution is that it cannot attribute in-app conversions back to AdWords. So as I mentioned, we have some solutions that are uh, uh, directed to in-app conversions like sale or something else. We will talk about it later on. And third-party analytics won't be able to show you that data in AdWords account. So that's something to bear in mind. What's also important is that those third-party solutions do not work across all Google Ads networks, and you should expect discrepancies with AdWords reporting. So let me tell you something more about this discrepancies part, because that's something I'm sure most of you are concerned about, or it's something that is important to you. The discrepancies is something I won't be able to comment much on the third-party side of things, because we are not, every third-party solution tracks the data in a bit different way, uses different methods. They are their own solutions, and we are unable to dig very deep into those solutions to compare and contrast both. However, bear in mind that with each measurement, if we are using different measurement methods, you will get different results, right? So even if we're talking about our real world things, if we are using analog measurement tape and laser measurement, we will get different results. And the same you should expect with one conversion tracking solution versus other conversion tracking solution. So it will never get you the same results for reasons stemming from technical perspective, like the moment we measure something or how we name something that is measured. So for example, an install and a first open, so a first time an app is opened, is something completely different. And if you would compare a codeless Android app install solution to a third party or even AdWords SDK first open, you cannot compare those two measurements because we are measuring something different. So that is something you should take into the account when comparing data from your third-party solution and AdWords, that they will pretty much never match because we are either comparing it differently or measuring it differently, or actually measuring something completely different. So that's something you have to remember when comparing the data. So let me now go to Google support options that are available to you on those two types of implementations. So first party implementation, which is Google SDK and server to server solutions, and third party implementation, which are third party tracking options. As you can well imagine, we have limited troubleshooting support for third party tracking, mostly because we are unable to get into the depths of this implementation, and we have no knowledge of what's happening on the third-party server in that respect. Whereas with third-party solution, so our solution, we can provide you with full support from implementation to troubleshooting, which might be an important element for some of you when choosing the solution that you want to go for. So now, since we've talked about the solutions that are available to us, let me go a bit deeper on the two fronts that we will be talking about. So first, app install tracking, and then in-app conversion tracking. So app install tracking is when you want to track how many people have installed the app. Okay, that's the first thing, and it's pretty important for most of the advertisers, as this is the kind of a billable event. The more people have your app, the better you can reach them. They can make purchases or reservations in your apps. They can make some in-app buys, like they can buy some additional game levels or some additional features of your app. So it's pretty important to know how many people have installed your app from within AdWords. In order to know that, we can implement a range of solutions we've already talked about. So there's Google SDK solution, which is not mentioned here on the Android side, but it also is there. What is mentioned here, however, is the codeless tracking setup, which is something many of you can be interested in, especially with the first steps for a conversion tracking option. So this is a solution that can be set in a matter of minutes. It's something that only requires you to have the Google Play account with your app linked and a conversion created. And from that moment on, if somebody from your app promotion campaign will click on the ad and install the app, you will know about it. So that's a seamless solution that has this immediate effect on your understanding of how the campaigns work. And it's something you should be interested in even today if you don't have it implemented yet. When it comes to Google SDK solution, this is something that gives you more options, as in it gives you also the option to track the in-app conversion, although it requires an implementation. So that's an option for Android conversion tracking when it comes to app installs, but it's not the only option for iOS app install tracking. So this is something to bear in mind with deciding whether you are going for codeless solution for Android and SDK implementation for iOS, or maybe both for Android and iOS. So this is when it comes to differences between the systems. And one more thing, I mentioned already that on mSearch, so mobile search, and on MGDN networks, it's impossible for us to track the conversions for iOS. This is because of that technical difficulty that you can see here. So I mentioned before about that IDFA identifier that is used to match clicks to conversions that happened within the app or to app installs. Due to the fact that it's impossible for us to match it on search and MGDN networks for iOS, this is why we are unable to measure this value for these types of ads. So that's something to bear in mind, and that's something you should expect when having your campaigns running, that you will not be able to see this data for mSearch and MGDN campaigns for iOS. This is a short reminder of what is available for across the networks for both of the solutions, so Android codeless as well as SDK, and iOS SDK option. Now, let's think about why it's important to track app installs. It's important for one very simple reason, at least, to know how many people have your app installed from AdWords campaigns, and therefore how the AdWords campaign worked to your benefit to driving more users to your apps. Remember that based on this information, you will be able to optimize your apps or optimize your campaigns to go towards the users and towards the placements and toward the keywords that really drive your app installs. Now, we've talked about AdWords app tracking when it comes to app installs. Now let's go to in-app events and how to track the conversions within the app. To be able to do that, we will be working on SDK level. Okay, the codeless solution for Android is available for tracking the installs, but not app in-app conversions. So that's something to bear in mind. When it comes to in-app conversion, it is used for two important reasons. So first of all, it can be attributed to click to download campaigns. So if you have those templated ads that drive your app installs, you'll be able to attribute in-app events to those clicks and to those downloads. It's important because sometimes the download is not important enough for you to be focusing your money on this event alone. Sometimes what is most important for you is to drive traffic to these placements and to these keywords that users have not only downloaded the app, but also made a purchase within the app or made an action within the app that is important for you. What's most important, what is even more important based on that is that if you are using SDK solution and created conversions for various actions within your app, so for a purchase, for somebody reaching to a certain level, for somebody making a booking, etc., etc., you can also build remarketing lists based on this in-app actions, and then use those remarketing lists for app re-engagement campaigns. When it comes to remarketing lists, one of my other colleagues will be talking more about this topic, so I don't want to go too much into that. But for app re-engagement campaign, it's very important to be able to reach the users that already have your app installed and either did or did not complete some kind of an action within your app. I will tell a little bit more about that in a second. But now let's look at the different networks availability for those solutions. As you can see, with iOS, still Google search and MGDN as well as Gmail campaigns are not trackable in this way. However, for Android, you can work across most of the networks at the moment with more search and MGDN networks for deep linking ads, so that app re-engagement ads coming soon. And did I mention deep linking? So with re-engagement apps, it's not only that you can reach users that already have your app installed, but more, you can move them to the appropriate place in your app. So let's reiterate, why track in-app actions? So here, as I mentioned, you can track not only the downloads, but what happens within your app after the users have already downloaded the app and is using it. So purchases, getting to certain level, or bookings, etc., etc. So with this in mind, with SDK implemented and having these actions tracked, you are able to first know how many people that have downloaded your app from AdWords, let's say, have completed a certain action, so in-app purchase, for example. Second of all, you can retarget those people. So you can create remarketing lists for people that have, for example, reached level number 10 in your game, but you've just came with level 11, right? So you want those people to come back to your app and play the 11th level of your game. And the same can be done with some bookings or purchases. Somebody have purchased something within your app, like a feature, and you've came with another in-app purchase feature that you want to promote. So you can take the remarketing list of those users and use them in a re-engagement campaign, either for search or for display. So you can show this ads of your app for people that already have the app installed and are looking for something. So for example, they are looking for hotels in Bali, and within your app you have an option for hotels in Bali, so you can show them exactly the page with the available hotels for Bali. Or you can have people who are browsing the internet, looking for going through other apps or going on MGDN, and are not necessarily interested in playing your game at this very moment, but as soon as they see that there's a new level available, they might think, yes, I haven't played this game for a week now, and I want to come back to it. Or I haven't used this app because I was missing this important feature, and now when it's here, I want to try this app again and see what can it do for me. So this is something important that we have to take into the consideration. So now let's sum up what options are available to us and what can they do for us. So for Android, we have this Google codeless install tracking solution that allows you to track Google app installs. And the pro for this solution is that it doesn't need any kind of implementation. It just works as soon as you turned it on in your account. Then there's Google conversion tracking solution, which allows you to track both installs and in-app conversions. There's also Google Analytics SDK available that allows you to track a bit more about your users already within the app, but this is also a topic that one of my colleagues will be talking about more. For iOS, you don't have this codeless solution, but you have Google conversion tracking solution and Google Analytics SDK as well. You can also use third-party solution, as I mentioned. So you will have to reach to your third-party solution provider to know what exactly is available within their solutions, what can you track, and how can you let us, as in Google, know about all of those actions that have happened within your third-party solution or S2S solution. So this, let me just quickly mention that, is done using postbacks. So certain links that are used to share information between your third-party solution provider and us. For us to be able to know that a conversion has happened and we may attribute it to AdWords, and for the third-party solution provider to know that this particular action came from AdWords. So this is important to share the data between the two. And this is a quick summation of what is available for conversion tracking for SDK and Google Analytics SDK tracking. So as you can see, with the Google Analytics conversion tracking, you can track some more in-depth actions of your users, as in spend and return or on ad spend or lifetime value. And that's why many advertisers use those two solutions in combination. So they are using both Google Conversion Tracking SDK and Google Analytics SDK to be able to know most data about their users and to be able to work properly with these solutions. So with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. I again would like to urge you to stay a little longer, and at noon London time there will be another hangout um, talking about Google Play Store solutions. So if you would like to know more about that, please stay with us. And again, thank you for your time. And I hope that the things that we've talked about today and we'll continue talking throughout the week will provide you more insight into how our solutions work and will be profitable for your business to be able to work as good as well as possible with us. Thank you.